get a bit of a tour of the room. Technical issues. A feature, not a bug. Good to see you all. Got a bit of a glimpse of the old hair there for a moment. So good to see you all. Sorry it's a bit late tonight. Let me pause that window over there, save some bandwidth. And let me also pop out the comments over here so that I can see what you're all saying. Remember, as always, if you want to say hello or ask me for a topic or a question or whatever, at Mark Equal Simon there in the comments and you can see me. Again, apologies, it's a little bit late. I had a few things I needed to do today. Just had me run a little bit late. But good to see you all here. Very good to be with you. Well, as usual, I don't think there's a lot of topics, but we'll see. I actually just went through and saved a whole bunch, so maybe there's more than I thought. Main news of course, this week has been the corona beer virus. It is funny how, I don't know, I'm pretty sure that people don't seriously think that corona beer could have anything to do with the virus, but yes, of course, coronavirus, SARS, MERS, all these other viruses were actually also other different types of coronaviruses, but the Wuhan one, so there we go. Believe in yourself can barely sit up, so not too many comments. I'm sorry that you can barely sit up. I hope that you're okay there. Tech Art 2, nice job on the interview. Oh yes, that's right, people who saw on Non-Native Creative, I got to chat with Alicia. I admit, I saw the sequence that those were coming out, and I remember the person who she interviewed after me came in right after me, so I remember when I saw that video came and went, I thought, geez, you know what, now that I think about it, I think I was a little bit boring in that video, and maybe I got cut. And I was trying to okay, that's cool. There were much more interesting other people, and I'm a big person about this, so I can move on, even though it's a little bit disappointing. But then yes, it came up, and it was by that point it was a pleasant surprise. And when I watched it back, I'd forgotten actually what we talked about. So it was actually there's a bunch of stuff in the podcast / YouTube interview with Alicia that I have never. I don't think I've ever shared before, actually. She was asking about my origin story, and I guess I don't talk all that much about my own personal life history. I mean, that's not what this is about. So, it was kind of weird in a way to be in the recipient position of this sort of thing. And it was actually it was a good old chat. The video, watching it back fresh, I thought, actually, okay, well, it wasn't that bad. So yes, definitely check those out. Yes, that is what that is, and go and check that out if you haven't. And bear in mind, when you watch the video of myself with Alicia, two things. One, definitely subscribe to Non-Native Creative and show them some support. A lot of work goes into that channel, actually a lot more work than goes into this channel. The content is worthy, actually. It really does deserve the support. And two, the other thing is, the reason I thought I might not actually have my video appear on that channel is because genuinely, as you will see if you watch the other videos, the other people are more interesting than me. So if you actually found the interview with me interesting, watch the other ones, because there are some really cool people doing some really, really cool things, and not just the standard, hey, I'm a video creator, or I'm a painter or something. Like people, she takes the definition of creative a lot more broadly. Like, for example, manga translator and restaurant designer, and actually it's pretty original and awesome. So please go check out the other videos on that channel and show some support. She did a very good job, I thought, in my case, and did a better job with everybody else. So go check that out. Thanks for the reminder. See who's in the comments. We got Sergeant Buko in there first. Good to see you. Quint Rankin, hi indeed. 3 Richie 21, welcome to Japan. Good to have you here in the time zone. The excitement begins. If you just got here, man, you are in for 1 year of being kind of crazy high, and then you can have lots of this, and then after 3 years you'll be thinking, is this where I'm supposed to be the rest of my life? And maybe you'll leave. Most statistics say you'll leave. And then if you figure out a way to spend the rest of your life here long term, which makes sense in your first year, but you got to come off that sugar high and figure it out. If you make it through to 5 years, you're going to be stuck here, depending on your perspective, permanently. But great, always great to have someone here who's actually kind of fresh to everything, because it still is, still is cool for me. So great to have you here. By the way, Richie 21. Where in Japan are you? Are you in Tokyo, or whereabouts are you hanging out there? Curious. It's always Tokyo is awesome, but I think if you're new to Japan, definitely good to check out places other than Japan first. I mean, Tokyo is like, or other than Tokyo first, because Tokyo is just non-stop forever. So anyway, congratulations and welcome. Tech Art 2, awesome to see you. Tokyo 503, good to see you. Believe in yourself. I'm sorry that you are hungry and depressed. Eat some food and watch The Good Place. Highly recommended. The other thing, by the way, this is kind of patronizing, I know, but when I think of the times I've been in those places or close to them, and maybe I can't say I've been as fully in them like as other people, but I've been in some tough spots. The gym, nothing wrong. Exercise is a funny way. Do something that makes you really, really tired. And believe me, even in recent years, the kickboxing thing has actually helped with this. It's not the aggression out thing at all. It's the making yourself so exhausted that your brain doesn't have your body doesn't have the capacity to feel the physical effects of depression. It's something that has helped me anyway. So I recommend that, and get some food for God's sake, please. In fact, don't watch this if you're in that situation. But watch this. But then, yes, seriously, go get a gym membership and eat some food, please. Slept 2.5 days non-stop. Well, that's the opposite of what you should be doing, although you are in Canada, and if you're related to bears, that could be a thing that could happen. Who else we got in here? But anyway, lack of sales related more so. Stress is very low. Oh, you left work, so that's good. Okay, Richie 21, I see that it was good. You're ready for your life crisis. Awesome. You're in far west Tokyo, relocated in August, not sure where though. Okay, well, I started my Tokyo gig in far west Tokyo. I started in Takao, the western side of Hachioji City. So I was so far out west that actually very close. We had friends who were actually technically still within Tokyo, but they even had a dialect out there. So I know the area well. Good times. There we go. 3 Richie 21. You know Takao. If you're in far west Tokyo, I knew that you know Takao. Takao is the end of all lines, basically. Now it goes out to Yamanashi, it goes out to Otsuki and stuff like that. But there you go. Mulberry Pie, good to see you. How's it? Good to see you. And you're moving to Kawasaki. Hope it's okay there. Kawasaki gets some bad press, but it's actually a fantastic location. And there's actually the thing about Kawasaki is it's very urban, which means that there's lots of things there. There's lots of great parks, there's lots of sort of museums and things to do. And you're super close to Yokohama, which is for lifestyle of like ring suburbs of Tokyo or ring city suburbs of Tokyo. Yokohama is like the best in Tokyo, so, well, technically it's in Kanagawa, it's not in Tokyo, but, and you're right near Shinagawa as well, so it's a good location, but, it can be a little bit grungy, but there again, I know for a fact that there are also some, it's got everything, and there are some great parks and great things to do, and I go and hang out there every now and then myself. So Mulberry Pie, feel good about Kawasaki, it's a good place. Odie Jr., good to see you. Boom, good morning to you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And Olivia D., good to see you. Hello, good evening. Let's get into the topics. I started late. We'll see if we can wrap this up before midnight, but you know how things go. Oh, that's me. I must admit, it did occur to me when I saw this one. I thought she must have taken a lot of photos to get a photo of me that didn't look awkward and deer in headlights, because I just do that like automatically whenever I see someone's finger about to press on a camera button. I don't photograph well. It also occurred to me that Arisha's, or I keep calling it Arisha in Tokyo, so I think of it as Arisha, but Alicia, her thumbnail strategy is all wrong. Honestly, if she just put herself on all the thumbnails, I think the channel would probably be less inhibited from growth. But I do appreciate her keeping it real and putting the hard, ugly face of her interviewer on the front of the video. And yes, it was a good chat. So please go check that out and go and support her in that channel. So that's the thing. I already talked about that. So we'll move on to the next one. We've got why Japanese names have flipped. The Economist. I've been in a low-level quasi-trolling discussion about this for a while now with people online, including Durf, at Mark DURF, who is the editor of the English version of Nippon.com. And yes, a few people who care about this sort of thing. Hike. I think you mean me. I'm definitely not photogenic. But yes, so there's a few places already in Japan which actually do publish, where they publish names in the Japanese word order. In Japanese, of course, you say the family name first, and the first name second. Just like the year, the date, you'll say the year first, followed by the month, followed by the day. In New Zealand, you do day, month, year. In Japan, you do month, year, month, day. And in America, for some reason, you guys do like month, day, year, which is just like, it's like playing the shell game. I don't know, it doesn't make any sense at all. It always drives me crazy when I work at an American company, so when someone in some vague like country, like for example Macau, and you don't know if they're following the US standard or the English standard, and they write down a date saying like 01/02/2020, and you don't know, are they talking 2nd of January or 1st of February? But yes, I've come to the conclusion, by the way, the Japanese are correct when it comes to dates. If you ever write them just numerically, like for example, if you do the New Zealand way, if you say 2nd of January, 02/01/2020, the Japanese way, if you write all the dates like that and you stack them up in an Excel sheet, as I've been known to like to do because I like Excel, everything will come out a mess. It'll be difficult to stack unless you actually have it recognized as a calendar date. Whereas if you write all the dates numerically in Japanese, even if you don't have it recognized as a date, they'll also come out in numerical order: 2020, 0102. Everything will be in order. So I'm very, I think the Japanese system actually makes the most sense for dates. For days as well, for the Japanese language, when you're in Japanese, in a way, I get the logic of it. Families are, I am, Hiko Simon, so I'm of the Simon family, and I'm the Hiko member of it, I suppose, is what you would say. But, it's, it emphasizes group identity above individual, but it's kind of consistent with a lot of other things. And in Japan, of course, this is not just a Japan thing, this is Korea. Most of East Asia actually does this, China and Korea. And it's also been pretty much the convention for a long time now that, when we say the North Korean leader, we say Kim Jong-un. Of course, it's Mr. Kim. Kim is the surname in that case. If we say the Korean Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader, we say Xi first. Xi is, of course, the surname. But yes, we accept their convention and their language when we speak English, of observing and respecting their naming convention. Even though it's a little bit confusing in English, Japanese has always been a bit more Western. They adopted the Western New Year. They adopted a lot more sort of conventions like this, including in English. They switched to the same way of saying names: first name first, surname second. That we have done. However, last year it's a small thing, but the Abe cabinet had said that they would like to follow the conventions of China and Korea and ask that foreign media, when covering Japanese government officials, that they would actually refer to Japanese people by the Japanese convention of saying the surname first. I.e., and it's kind of true in a way. I can flip this around in terms of when I went to high school in New Zealand. I was at a grammar school, public school. It wasn't private, but for 5 years I was referred to by my surname, and it's kind of funny. It doesn't happen very often, but now when people shout out my surname to me or call me by my surname, it's a little bit weird. Although I got used to it for a time. But we live in a society where we like to call people by their first names. However, when you're called by another name that's yours but you're not used to it, it's slightly disconcerting. And I guess this is what happens with Japanese people. When Trump shows up to Japan, and he's saying, me and Shinzo, nothing really wrong with that, but it is weird. For people at work, I can remember having this debate with people at work as to how come you all get called by your surname and you all call me by my first name. And I fought back on this for about 18 months. My first 18 months in Japan, I fought back. And I remember people told me, isn't it more friendly? Isn't it better? Don't you like being called by your first name? And I was like, sure, Masai. How about I just call you Masai from now on, okay? Masai-chan? And she said, okay, you've made your point, stop it. In those sort of formal settings, it doesn't make sense in Japanese. So, okay, although online I've been kind of trolling for a long time, saying it doesn't make sense in English to be, to be using Japanese grammar rules for English names, for Japanese names in English when speaking English. I kind of get what's behind it, and so this is what's happening. And the fact that The Economist is now going to follow this is kind of a big deal, and I can see that happening elsewhere. However, I couldn't help but troll. I had to write a tweet pointing out, what about half Japanese people? What about Naomi Osaka, who lived in Japan, is Japanese citizen, represents Japan, born in Japan until 3 years old, but is also half Haitian, and grew up in America? Are they going to call her Osaka Naomi or Naomi Osaka? And what about for example, naturalized Japanese, Michael Leach, New Zealander, Luke Thompson, he's now Thompson Luke. He became a Japanese citizen. Does that mean that The Economist will refer to all naturalized people, all people with Japanese citizenship? Like, well, what's the criteria? What about where their cultural identity is that they prefer to be called by Western names? There's a lot of grey zones, and I have a lot of fun thinking of those grey zones and poking holes. But I had some people come back and mention that it actually makes sense in some ways, because in a way the spelling and the order can actually get really confusing sometimes, particularly when you're doing things like copy editing. So yes, tech art. Well, yes, just like in Australia, everyone is called Bruce. I guess we could call everybody Bob, but that would be, I think, a good solution for that. That could happen. Same in Sweden, year, month, day. Well, there we go. Japan's the same as Sweden. Well, Sweden, congratulations. I think that Sweden makes sense on this one. New Zealand and South Africa, similar with dates. I think Australia does the same thing as well. I think that's how they stop the teams getting lost in the Super Rugby. When they get on the plane, they don't arrive in the wrong month. Which could happen if they had the dates being written like Americans. I mean, you could you could be showing up at the stadium, 9 months before the game. It wouldn't work at all. By the way, I see some more people in the comments there. Gene, good to see you. In fact, just Gene, but good to have you, Gene. For Japanese names, you prefer the family name followed by the given name. Well, it looks like that's what we're gonna do. So, yes, indeed. Quint Rankin, more importantly, 12-hour, 24-hour clock. Well, this is another thing I love about Japan. Japanese people just use the 24-hour clock, and they just say 16 o'clock. And it makes sense. It's kind of, what's the point in saying 4 o'clock if you have to clarify afterwards? Oh, I mean AM or PM or whatever. I mean, if you ever meant AM, you should be locked up anyway. But you know what I mean, right? And when you're dealing with time zones or whatever, and you're trying to calculate when someone's 8 hours behind or 6 hours ahead or something like that as well. So, apart from the fact I grew up in an army family, and it still feels a bit like a little bit military, but at the same time, to me, 24-hour clock actually makes a lot more sense. Three Richie 21. I mean, I don't know. It requires a little bit of extra math, but in the end of the day, it makes more sense than 12 hours. Again, AM, PM is just why have that? And you really start to appreciate it when you're dealing with time zone conversion, and you've constantly got people, even if it's just 1 or 2 hours ahead, if they're like an hour in front of you or behind you, but particularly if they're like 6 hours apart, and you're trying to say 1 o'clock, hey, it's going to be 1 o'clock for you, and there's a big difference between 1 AM and 1 PM, right? So, it is worth it. If you're in Japan, it's worth getting used to things being on 24-hour time, because it really helps. Indeed, you can see 24-hour clock for the win. Well spotted, Sergeant Bilko. Well spotted. This is actually, I've come to the conclusion, is good news. Of course, there's a few things happening with the nuclear reactors right now. Of course, the nuclear reactor that was hit by the tsunami that was caused by a massive earthquake that flooded and caused a nuclear reactor to quadruple meltdown. And now they've been trying to cool it, and all the water's contaminated with tritium, and they've been storing literally like trillions of liters of, some ridiculous amount of water on land in Fukushima, and they can't store anymore, and they have to release it somewhere, and they're going to release it into the ocean, and it's really not good. And on the one hand, yes, Japan is a bowling alley of natural disasters for whatever you have, and nuclear power, of course, is dangerous, carries a lot of risks. At the same time, what's happened is, since that accident occurred in 2011, every nuclear power plant in Japan has been shut down now for 8 years. And if you're like anti-nuclear campaigner, as most of my country is, New Zealand actually outlaws nuclear, including nuclear power. They're nuclear everything except radiology. They allow cancer treatments. But if you're afraid of the risk of radiation, which everybody is, it's a scary unknown. this is the right thing, even though it's meant that in order to generate all the power that the economy needs here in Japan, all these lights that are on at the moment, this computer, everything is being generated. There's a small amount, because Japan has 8 power grids. It means any single power grid you can have generally up to about 5% renewables installed on it, because they're intermittent. They go up and down, and you have to counterbalance them with what the actual demand is, or else you get a blackout or overload or something like that. Because, however, all the good renewable energy in Japan is on grids with no people, it means that for the whole country it's about 1.5% renewable. You can't have very much, which means the other 98.5% has to be either big hydro dams, nuclear, or thermal. And most of it's thermal. Most of what the nuclear power plants, which used to be about 40% of Japan's power generation, have been replaced by burning stuff. And Japan has been, like, you see all the fires in Australia and Brazil and everything. Well, Japan's been piling on with them, where Japan is the country that hosted the Kyoto conference for the Kyoto Protocol that led to these emissions, targets and everything. And they were all dependent upon using nuclear power. Because the thing is, for all the problems with nuclear power, it is good for climate change. There are risks involved with it in terms of human health and whatever. But, so we end up with by the way, I just spotted something funny. Degens Konto has said, you've seen Anime Era 27 o'clock. Also useful though, right? Because again, 3 is confusing, and yes, I also subscribe to having over 24 hours of clocks actually for that purpose. But coming back, what is Japan burning? A lot of natural gas, but also just a lot of biomass, fuel, coal. They import it all. Japan doesn't really, of course they garbage to some extent, but pretty much it's mostly imported gas and oil that they get from the Middle East, and from, they could get a bunch from Russia, but they're burning climate gases. So, so yes, you end up with, hey, Steve Miller, good to see you. Welcome. So yeah, you end up with a situation where you kind of have to take your poison a little bit on this. Believe me, I used to work in renewable energy policy. No one wants renewables more than me. When you see Scotland and Denmark say that they have 100% renewables, it's a lie. They have it within their borders, but they can do that because they're small countries attached to very, very large power grids, and they can have other countries take up the slack of their intermittency. France has a ton of nuclear, and other countries there like Poland have a bunch of thermal, and they can actually offset the instability caused by Denmark with all of its wind. Of course, there's batteries and there's tricks you can do to enhance the amount of renewables, but you don't get 100% because you need to counterbalance it with thermal power, and that's what we have. But thermal power is terrible for the for climate change, and I think you have to get to a point now where, yes, when all the reactors were shut down, Japan put crazy safety standards on all of them, which they've been spending nearly 10 years now to try to build to get up to, in terms of earthquake proofness, in terms of tsunami protection, in terms of walls, shake isolation, everything to make sure that these things would withstand a repeat of Fukushima, which is a great thing, and they're actually seriously doing it, and it's taken all of this time. Now that some of these courts are ready to, now that some of these reactors are ready to go, we are getting a problem of NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Everyone is so afraid of becoming the next Fukushima, and everyone's saying, and the thing about Fukushima is not that people died. I mean, there were a couple of people who died, like workers and so on. Majority of people who died from Fukushima died from the stress of being forced to relocate. Not from the actual radiation itself. There were a lot of people, I was here in Tokyo the whole time with my young son being told by people, screamed at over the internet by hysterical, lying, mistruthful anti-nuclear activists, and I come from a whole country of them, being screamed at that everyone in Tokyo was going to get cancer and die, and you can tell these are people who feel like it's okay to say stupid things like that because the goal of getting rid of nuclear power is worth it. But it's, we were pawns in psychological warfare, and that was what the damage was. But here's the deal: if you're really for the environment, and you have to weigh up what's the bigger risk to the planet right now, climate change or nuclear power? And it's unquestionably climate change. It's happening. And it's happening because of human emissions, which come primarily from power generation. And right now Japan is doing the absolute worst thing. And if you look at the climate crisis genuinely as a crisis, that requires possibly risky action in order to do the right thing. I'm glad that the court here in Ohi, which I believe is in Shikoku, Osaka, the Osaka court found actually, yes, that all of these people said that these plants are on a fault line and they're at risk of suffering an earthquake, and please don't turn them on again because we don't want to have an accident in our backyard. Japan needs them, and the world needs these things turned on. So, look, I'm not pro-nuclear power, but I am anti-climate change, and I think that there's too many people. It's cool to have a meme or a protest or a sit-in or something like that. But if you really want to do something meaningful about climate change, where that really makes a difference, switching these fellas on is what you do. You turn on nuclear power and you accept the risk. In fact, you have to accept that there are going to be more Fukushimas. We can make them safer, we can improve and lower the risk of it, but I think, and we should always continue to try to research to find better sources of power that aren't nuclear. But for now, if we're in an emergency right now and we can't wait 20 years to figure out how to figure out all the technical problems and engineering problems that exist with renewables, we've got to be switching on nuclear power like nobody's business. And in fact, we shouldn't just be switching on the 22 nuclear reactors that are closed. We should be building 22 more, which was the original plan. Not ideal, but a hell of a lot better than what's happening right now, and that's how I see it. It's the lesser of two evils. I'm not saying it's great, but I think it's necessary. Yes, hey, ILRATch299, good to see you. And yes, I stayed here the whole time. Gon claimed to be the first foreigner to return to Japan. I don't know, he lost a lot. I don't really see him as... his credibility was substantially diminished with me before he skipped bail and hid in a speaker case and escaped on a private jet. But after that press conference, it kind of went through the floor, particularly with that comment. But look, this is the thing. I think we have to come back to accepting that while not ideal, in fact, while risky as hell, here's the thing: the human species is not going to get wiped out by nuclear power. We might get mutated, some of us might die, some places might become uninhabitable. But better than that, we do face a risk of the planet becoming unlivable. And we see everything happening even faster than the most extreme predictions when it comes to climate change. This is how we can deal with this problem today. So I hope that these things get switched on. And I think it is ridiculous that... I can understand nobody wants to have a nuclear reactor on a fault line in their backyard. I get that, but I think bigger priorities need to hold here. In fact, it should be treated in the same way as people coming into the country with the Wuhan coronavirus. Yeah, you've got to quarantine people. You have to say to people, well, I'm sorry, climate change is necessary. In better circumstances, we'd listen to you, but no, we're turning them on. So that's the thing. Speaking of nuclear power, Fukui Prefecture, the prefecture with dinosaurs, ironically, speaking of fossil fuels, the prefecture with the most fossils, Fukui Prefecture, and the most nuclear power plants in the country. They've got the highest concentration of nuclear power plants, all shut down right now. So the Sora News had this odd title: Data shows that Fukui Prefecture may be the best place to live, but surveys of people say it's not. I saw people confused by this, but of course the point is, things that we use as indices that indicate that a place is a good place to live, Fukui comes out apparently pretty well. It is actually considered, I think it was the last prefecture in Japan to have a Starbucks, although it's actually conveniently located not far from Tokyo or Osaka actually. It's got fantastic nature, it's got huge sand dunes, it's meant to be a very, very nice place to live. However, in spite of scoring well on all the things that typically matter, it is not the place that people in Japan consider the best place to live. Yay, golf, says Sergeant Bilko. I don't know if that's related to Fukui Prefecture or not, but yes, indeed, landscapes, various nice things. The life index, lifestyle index, and dignity index, they all come very, very well. But yes, apparently so. Well, again, it's always these surveys on Sora News are always a little bit dodgy, but this was done by the University of Tokyo when they tried to figure out on a data basis what's the best in Japan. So average lifespan, employment, interpersonal connection. But in terms of the survey here, apparently they looked at the life index that looks at healthy life expectancy, lifespan, the lifestyle index, which looks at graduation rates and school promotion rates, and the dignity index, which looks at things like bullying and whatnot. So these were from, now I realize, so okay, the first is on the human security index or whatever, that it did very well. But when you look at these different indices that were surveyed by the United Nations, apparently the top of the life index, which once again, let's repeat, this is average lifespan and healthy life expectancy. Top is Aichi. That's ridiculous. Seeing how those people drive down there is kind of crazy. So there we go. Shiga Prefecture second and Tokyo number 3. So apparently, if you want to live healthy and long, kind of surprises me Okinawa doesn't come out top in life, because they've got the longest life expectancy and they do seem to be healthy. So I don't understand that one bit. In lifestyle, so remembering that lifestyle is talking about income, graduation rates, and school promotion rates. Fukui took the top spot, which is interesting, followed by Toyama, which is also a lovely place, and Nagano, also a nice place. And for dignity, cases of bullying, freedom of speech, and whatnot, Tokyo was number 1 for that. So apparently, if you don't want to get bullied, Tokyo is the best place. Certainly seems that way from what I'm seeing, although kind of a little bit scary there. That there are places that are worse. Tokyo is 1 with Nara and Shimane coming 2nd and 3rd. It's funny, Nara, I've got an image of being very conservative actually, and kind of standoffish towards outsiders, but there you go. Ranking on the bottom after averaging out all these factors was Aomori Prefecture. And Okinawa also came out 2nd to last, and Miyagi, which of course suffered from the tsunami, from the Great East Japan earthquake, also came out 3rd bottom. So that's weird, because back in the days it used to really be Fukuoka, Sapporo, and Sendo, and Miyagi. They used to be the ones that used to get the top scores and places to live. But yes, apparently in terms of surveys of where people say that they want to live, apparently Kyushu came out really, really well. Kagoshima, Miyazaki, Nagasaki. Interesting survey anyway, and might help you decide where you want to live. I guess it was a good choice. 3 Richie 21 that you picked West Tokyo, so there you go. Did they ask people if they're happy? No, of course they're not happy. Not relevant to anything. I just watched this. I had a few people talk about how good this was, and I finally got around to watching it like about a week and a half ago, and I started watching season 1, and I really liked season 1. Got a little bit confused by season 2, but sort of got into it then, and then it kind of went on this vibe which went through, and it just happened that I actually got up to the final episode like the day after the actual final episode aired. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's good. Of things that I wouldn't say it's the best thing I've watched on Netflix, but it's pretty good. What I particularly appreciate the cast. I thought they did very well, and actually surprisingly deep and surprisingly touching, which is actually kind of where I don't normally go for that sort of thing. But I really liked it anyway. So if you haven't watched it, watch it. It is good. I recommend it. This. So of course, news, particularly in the last few days, has apparently happened with SARS as well as that this kind of disease from China thing. A lot of things coming out in the news now, but at the way it's manifesting in a lot of places, although now this exists now in a whole bunch of countries, it is being turned into racist and negative attention being directed towards primarily Chinese people, even in Japan towards Chinese people, but to people who can't tell the difference between anyone from East Asia to all East Asians, including, I think I've got it here somewhere, that there was an Italian university that actually prohibited all East Asian students from classes out of fear of the disease. I mean, and when you think about this, even within Japan, how people just naturally, it's very easy to take people that you don't know that look different, and when you associate it with something like a killer germ, that you start to personify those people as the killer germ, and somehow it's their fault for bringing it into the world, and to want to discriminate against them or treat them the way you would, as if they were infected. And this means that people who have nothing to do with China, people who are not sick at all, even people who are from China. Remember, China, yes, they have 10,000 people sick, and it is an epidemic within China, and it's all in all parts of China, but still the official number of patients is 10,000. It's a country of 1.4 billion people. In Japan, Japan's getting the truth. Japan's got like the second highest count of people, 20 people infected, and yet Japan is a country of 120 million people. It is remarkable that in Japan nearly all the people who are infected are people who are from Wuhan, which implies that it got quite out of control within that city before. And this is now coming out in the New York Times. There was a good article there talking about how the first doctors that highlighted, hey, we might have a new SARS epidemic here, were called in by the police. And that information was suppressed for a length of time, which stopped them taking measures to fight it, which clearly exacerbated the spread throughout that city, which is an enormous city, by the way, as well. Of course, now China is clamping down in a way that only a country like China can clamp down. The delay to respond is somewhat of a problem of being, a country that can't really tolerate politically inconvenient truths, even when it's public health emergencies. But all of that said, think of that as well. These are normal people in these situations, and most people in China, are in a terrible situation, and it's not us and them. It's already in most countries around the world, and it's probably going to spread. I think I started to notice when I was tweeting stories about this, like, for example, there were various stories that were happening through the week. Like, for example, the first airplane that came in, apparently 2 people refused to be medically examined and demand to just go home, and they were taken home in Shinjuku and let loose. And everyone freaked out, so much so that if it wasn't their wives, it was probably fear of being stalked and outed by the weekly magazines that these people came in and turned themselves in and said, okay, please test us. A couple of days later. So the system of shame and ostracization in Japan clearly works. I noticed that every time granted, there were a lot of gaps. The fact that Japan wasn't quarantining people, they were only quarantining people that were showing symptoms. And they later discovered that people turned out to be carriers without showing symptoms sometimes. So there was a lot of focus. I saw in the retweets and in the comments, where I found comments, that stuff which I found was commentable and ridiculous, and is this really the right way to do it? People seem to prefer to react by kind of fear and outrage, and I saw in that fear and outrage a real willingness to go with the flow on sort of panic, the old Fukushima thing. And it occurred to me that wait a minute, at the end, opposite, the business end of this are people, who are afraid and in a really terrible situation, and this is nobody's fault. Mr. Korichep asks, what about Adachi? Haha, yes. Well, Adachi, so far nothing. It still has been within Tokyo. The majority have been visitors from that city, Wuhan, and the tour guides and people associated with that. It's likely to spread, we'll see, but so far Adachi is fine. But yes, the point being that on top of those people themselves having to deal with a lot of fear and uncertainty, and having to deal with a pretty crappy government, suddenly locking everybody up in these cities and so on, people all over the world now, I think people are letting fear and hysteria take over, and that is causing people to be shitty, which is why suggestion. It occurred to me, like, when I started to feel guilty about seeing the number of retweets and the comments that I was seeing back on my tweets, and I said, okay, listen, unless it's actually helpful information, I am not going to tweet anymore unless it's genuinely something worth commenting about. There were the number of outrage articles, they're easy to find, and it was fun getting 100 retweets on every single one of them. But I decided that no, I'm becoming a part of the problem, and it occurred to me, when I come home, every convenience store in Tokyo has Chinese people on the staff. And it just occurred to me, you know what, they must spend all day right now, the Chinese staff at the convenience stores, with their face masks and saying hello in Chinese style Japanese, and they must get people being shitty to them. It must happen. I mean, just seeing the way that people are reacting when they don't think anyone's around, that they're acting shitty in person to them. And it just occurred to me, I had the thought that I feel bad that I felt for a day or two like, okay, I'm contributing to this mood which is going to make these people's lives horrible. So one, I'm going to stop doing that, and two, I'm actually going to consciously be extra nice when I see Chinese people. I'm going to say a friendly hello and ask them how they're doing, and say the old share to them or whatever, because yes, for a start, Chinese people, people of Chinese heritage are everywhere. People, have even people from Australia or New Zealand, multi-generational, they still, one, they're being discriminated, treated like they're from China, and a lot of them do have family connections with China, and sure, you'd worry, of course you'd worry. It's not a time for anyone to feel like, oh, look, they screwed up. There's nothing like that about this. So I have decided the last couple of days that in my interactions with Chinese people to, one, stop contributing in any way to pointless hysteria about the virus. Helpful information, yes, and two, let's be nice, consciously nice to Chinese people, because right now you can be sure that even if you're nice, there's going to be 10 people outnumbering you being kind of crappy with them, and that includes not allowing your own fear to take over when you see people you can identify as Chinese and thinking, oh, I'm just going to avoid them, or I'm going to pull on a face mask or something like that. Wear a face mask by all means, but don't be an asshole about it. Be nice. Remember to be nice. I think it's a good time to remember to be like that. Bye, McNeil. Excellent to see you. So good to have you on. Good to have you in the comments. And yes, be nice and be consciously nice, because I think right now a lot of people are in a mental headspace of fear about this whole thing that makes it easy for them to forget to be nice and to kind of not be nice. So be nice. And yes, I've been wearing these guys, the black ones, which actually I've never worn before. I've seen foreign tourists in Japan wearing these. This is the only one that they had that sold out of everything, and they had a big one that fit my face. Was this? So I've been wearing these ones, and I know people at work said, "Oh, you look kind of freaky with those." I'm kind of like, well, I might not go back now. What can I say? Speaking of foreigners in Japan, the gang, as I like to refer to us, we have hit a high. We've grown 13.6% to 1.658804 million people in Japan. Remembering that as workers, so I'm guessing that it's excluding permanent residents like myself, actually. And who are we? Well, by nationality, Chinese make up the largest group, 418,327, which is an increase. But man, there were like no Vietnamese people here in Tokyo like 10 years ago, there were no Vietnamese people, or they're barely noticeable in the statistics. And now Vietnamese people are about to overtake Chinese. They're already up to 401,326. Filipinos are up to third at 179,000. Really remarkable. When I came to Japan, residents, there were a lot of Koreans, and what's happened with the Koreans is the multi-generational ones have often taken Japanese citizenship. It was always sort of, even then, South Koreans were in Japan to work. It was South Koreans, Chinese, a lot of Brazilians, a lot of Iranians, and way down the list were English speakers. Mr. Kordychev, behave. No racism of any type will be tolerated in the comments, especially towards Norwegian people, who are Donald Trump's favorite country of people. Interesting anyway that we are increasing, and it looks like Vietnamese are very soon going to become the number one biggest group of foreign workers in Japan. So that is a thing. Again, non-native creative, go check it out. It is well done. The interview with Alicia was cool. A lot of stuff I've never shared before shared on that interview. And if you liked it, the other interviews are much better. So go and subscribe and watch the other ones as well, and show some support. Leave a comment. Let her know that you watched. It's always nice for a creator when they spend a lot of work on making videos to know that people appreciate the work that went in, and she did a really good job. The sound in particular was awesome, actually, so I really appreciated that. This is funny. In fact, this is actually kind of a thing. So with the white surgical masks, I would always, I had been wearing them wrong. I learned this from this article, 21 years in Japan. Whenever you see the string, it's always attached to one side, and there's like which makes it look like you always assume that the side where the string is the inside that you attach, and the other side without the string is the outside. That's wrong. And you can actually, this is a great thing about colored masks, is you can actually see that it actually, the string is supposed to be on the outside because it actually means that there's less gaps. You pull it back so that it's sort of there's less risk of a gap, and apparently the glue that attaches sometimes irritates people's skins. So yeah, apparently mask manufacturer points out that people generally, 40% of people have been wearing them in, the wrong way around the whole time. So yes, Odie Jr., yes, I divulge secrets. Check out 2, where it's at, 2 turntables and a microphone. That's right, damn straight. Yes, I'd love to break out the turntables again as well. So yes, remember that when you're wearing your surgical face masks, do it correctly. Oh yeah, Britain left the EU. Congratulations, commiserations, whatever applies. I mean, you left 3.5 years ago, and it's just been awkward watching ever since then. I still think at least the Brits got a vote. The rest of us didn't. To the people within Britain, like the Scots in particular, talking about, well, they're so against Brexit that they're going to protest by exiting England, exiting Britain. I almost said England. That's the whole problem. To me, well, I mean, that seems dumb. I mean, protesting leaving a greater sovereignty by leaving a greater sovereignty that you're closer to seems dumb. I get it. They don't like the Tories and Bannockburn and blue faces and all that sort of stuff. I've got some Scottish heritage myself. Not that I really care about it. But yes, look, if Britain wants to implode on itself and become, the separate countries for Wales, Scotland, Cornwall, and Northern Ireland, go ahead. I don't really see what benefit there is to anyone of that. At the same time, I can see, look, there are upsides to leaving the EU. The EU is basically, well, look, my view is it's like this thing here. Everyone talks about how, the EU is going to lose all the British money. Well, remember the whole thing was France and France and Germany for a long time. They've wanted a common military, common currency. They wanted to actually turn into a single proper country. And Britain was always in there, kind of blocking it. Japan, Britain wanted to be in there as a free trade bloc, but they didn't want to give up their sovereignty, give up their military, give up their pound. And remember, towards the time of the Brexit vote, one of the things that forced this issue was that Brussels was talking about regulating the financial trade in the City of London. A whole bunch of areas which bring a lot of wealth into Britain looked like they were going to be regulated. So, besides the fact that a lot is already regulated from the EU, and Britain never liked that. So, look, Britain, on the one hand, Britain gets to continue being Britain, and they don't have to send so much money to the EU, and they can figure out what to do with that. On the other hand, the EU itself is in many ways better off without Britain stopping them from more closely integrating. They're now free to go ahead, and we might end up with a United States of Europe. And remember as well, Europe is like 53 countries. It's not 20, it's not just the members of the EU. Norway, Switzerland are not members of the EU, and they do fine. So, I think congrats the EU. Now you've got you don't have England there. It makes it much easier for France and Germany to do what they originally wanted to do with the EU. And that's going to make it harder for Britain to rejoin, frankly, because it's going to mean more handing over of sovereignty, because I think that's the intent of a lot of the core members of the EU is actually to become a superstate and let them be that. And, for Britain, well, you kind of lost out, but at least you guys got to choose. New Zealand and Australia and Canada didn't get to choose getting kicked out from Britain. So, good luck with everything. As far as I'm concerned, it is like a divorce. You just get on with your new lives, buy a Porsche. Go and pick up a new colony, who cares? So yeah. And Quentin Rankett, good point, that you can't imagine Germany and Greece being happy together. Well, but this is where there have been these internal groups within the EU, like the Eurozone countries or whatever. And you say Germany and Greece, but if they're in the same currency, they're using the same central bank. If they, it's not that far of an extra step to unifying militaries and whatnot, having a proper European military. I say let them do it. Let them do the experiment. Maybe it'll work. So anyway, that's the thing. Yes, the Good Place was awesome. Check it out. And this, I don't know if you saw this today, but there was the Global Times, the friendly English face of the Chinese propaganda machine, posted this video of drones wandering around China, sneaking up on people and then blaring at them warnings to put on a face mask, including one man in the middle of a plane in Mongolia by himself, in the one place you'd think he wouldn't have to do it. So yes, this was very looked like an episode of Black Mirror. I guess that the drones were not like zapping people yet, although you know that they're working on that functionality. You know that they're going to be able to tase people from these drones pretty soon. But for now, these drones with loudspeakers are going around tracking and harassing people, and probably recording their faces and who they are, and deducting them, social score points for not wearing face masks. Yes, indeed. Oh, pollen season starting in Tokyo. That's another reason to get face masks here. I don't get affected by it this time of year. I do get affected later on in the year, but that's the thing. There is the racist Italian music school. By the way, the what do they call him? The chancellor of the university that made the call is a guy called Giuliani, which I thought was hilarious. Clearly related. But yes, forbidding all East Asian students from coming to classes because they're afraid of getting that. So yes. Oh, today I actually watched a little bit last night. I finished watching today Earthquake Bird on Netflix. Earthquake Bird looks a little bit like it's supposed to be the story of Lucy Blackman, or something inspired by that. Watching it, I would say that's not the case whatsoever. I kind of spent the first hour of that movie, maybe not the first hour, the first 40 minutes of the movie, feeling super awkward, and I think that's on me. I was feeling awkward watching a story about a kind of foreigner and a bunch of situations I didn't find plausible. That's it. And this is partly me also feeling the urge to just lecture, like, no, that's wrong, or no, that would never happen, and no, that's not like that. And that's horrible. If it had been set in Kenya, I might have actually enjoyed it more. That's true. I acknowledge that. That's not a reason not to watch it. It's all right. And I actually realized from about the final hour of the movie, it's kind of like all the weirdness in the beginning kind of starts to make sense a little bit, actually. So I forgive it for that. It just wasn't very good. I don't know. I wanted to like it. Well, I wanted to get over myself watching it at first, and I did. But then when I did that, I was still giving it a chance. But in the end, it's just kind of an average. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. The Good Place I recommend. Earthquake Bird. Hey, if you're not in Japan, honestly, no, don't. No, it's just not good. So there you go. That's all the topics for tonight. It's 11:52. I would normally do some music, but it is pretty late, and I have to wake up early tomorrow. Final chance, if you've got a topic, a question, something you'd like to say, at Mark Kiko Simon in the comments, and say it now, or forever hold your peace. Oh, I managed to get through tonight without getting sometimes I come out of the shower and I start talking on this, and my nose, somehow I get a runny nose. I have to blow my nose in the start of the show, which is always a little bit awkward. I didn't get that tonight, but I did get a little bit raspy, so there you go. I guess that's it. So, yeah, thank you for joining me. Remember, be nice to Chinese people. Don't be a dick about germs and stuff like that. We've all got to deal with them. Sergeant Bilkov, I've been doing them. It is funny. Doing it later actually motivates me to go faster. That's part of it. Truth is, nothing really burning in Japan either. A lot of generally interesting news topics to talk about. I'm glad that you guys come and join me every week to go through them together. I appreciate also that you share your views in the comments. And yeah, go check out Non-Native Creative. Please go subscribe and support. Leave nice comments all over that channel. Be good to each other. Take care. Remember to wear a face mask correctly. Don't wear it inside out like I've been doing for 21 years. And keep cool till after school. Kakite ano, peace. Oh, I see some comments now. Wait a minute. This is the buffer thing. Let me address. Sergeant Bilko. Oh no, that's the G's. Quint Rankard. You'd like to hear my thoughts on Wuhan having a level 4 research center? I don't know what a level 4 research center is. Are you talking about that building that they built in like 10 days? That's cool. I mean, China's not very good at, free political thought or, transparent distribution of public safety information, but they're pretty good at building shit. I mean, that was impressive. And I don't know what a level 4 research center is, but I don't know, maybe they should get a level 5 one. That's all I can really say. Diggins Contour, you want a good earthquake show, there's always Tokyo magnitude 8.0. Wow. What's that? That's on YouTube, is it? That might be worth checking out. I will take a look. Thank you for the recommendation. In fact, I'm going to go over here and check that out now, just to make sure I've got that right. Is that a YouTube show? Tokyo magnitude 8.0. Okay, that's like an anime thing. I will check. Oh, I see. It's actually a show. Oh, these are pirated shows that are on YouTube. I shouldn't be watching it on YouTube, but okay. Thank you for that. That is cool. I will check that out legally where it is available. So yes. Okay. Have a good night, everybody. Have a good day. Have a good afternoon. Enjoy your Sunday. See you tomorrow. See you next week. And check out Non-Native Creative. Peace. Boom. See you, everyone. Remember to like if you liked. Peace.